Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming 2K Pioneer Open. I'm Tandy, joined by Bomat. Say hi, Bomat.
Hi, Bo Matt.
We have a top eight players left in the room who
Yes, we
battled it
do.
out through 7 rounds of Swiss, an enormous Sunday event with almost 80 players today. We had
Yeah.
130 yesterday, just an enormous amount of turnout for this weekend at Apex Gaming, and we're really flexing in our room next door that we renovated to hold this many people, and they really
Yeah.
put it at capacity almost. So big shout out to everyone who came and hung out with us this weekend, but we have 8 players left in this event, and Bomat's going to give us the rundown on who's in there, what they're playing, and the matchups we're going to be watching.
All right. Running from 8th all the way up to 1st, we see Brad Pizzuto playing Mono White Humans, Toby Finsley, also on Mono White Humans, Corey Baumeister on Mono Green Devotion, David Tobias on Izzet Phoenix, Dylan Ham playing Rakdos Midrange, Mason Clark, Mono Green Devotion, Samuel Ball on Gruel Boats, and Jonathan Fessemeyer on Blue White Control. Starting on our backup table, we're going to see two guests of the stream, Mason Clark and Corey Baumeister, having to play each other in the mono green mirror. But first, on our primary feature table, we're going to see Dylan Ham and David Tobias playing Rakdos Midrange against Izzet Phoenix.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Well, the players are just about ready. So let's go ahead and head down to the feature match area and watch our first elimination match. These players here have locked up have locked up $100. The winner of this match will advance to top 4 for $150. Second place is $300, and first place up top 500 big ones. But these players aren't just playing for cash; they're also playing to invites to multiple different events. First place is going to qualify for the regional championship in Atlanta at DreamHack in December, and the top 2 finishers will qualify for the Apex Series Invitational in November here right in Caldwell, Ohio. So a lot on the line. I know Corey wants an invite to the Apex Invitational.
Oh,
Mason
yeah.
wants an invite to the Apex Invitational. I think they're both qualified for Atlanta or doing commentary over Atlanta. It's impossible. They're all just super busy with that type
Right.
of stuff. So I just always assume that they are already qualified or in there. Here we go. On your left, Deshaun Johnson playing Mono White
Nope.
Humans.
Looks like our labels are a little bit slow to update. We do have Dylan Ham on the right on Rakdos Midrange and Davis Tobias on the left playing Izzet
We'll get that
Phoenix.
fixed for you in just a moment. No play for either player on turn 1, but we do have a Thoughtseize on 2 for Dylan Ham, and that's going to meet a Spell Pierce, and we're going to go back to Izzet Phoenix. These players are going to be playing hot and heavy, quick and fast. And we got a land number 2, Spire Bluff Canal for the Phoenix player, and we're going to probably cast a Chart of Course. Let's see if we can find an Arclight Phoenix to put in the bin. There it is.
And, interesting to see that Spell Pierce trading off for a Thoughtseize. Maybe David either thought the Spell Pierce wouldn't be doing much in this matchup, or has a key spell, a card advantage engine against Rakdos. He's trying to protect, like maybe pieces of the puzzle or Treasure Cruise.
Yeah, maybe just thought, hey, this Chart of Course is what's making my hand function, so let's go and do that.
Right.
So if we could get the spotter to move the graveyard onto the screen a little bit, that would be helpful. I don't think David Tobias discarded Arclight Phoenix. I think he's looking to fill the graveyard first for something like Treasure Cruise, so that it's not vulnerable to Graveyard Trespasser, which we see from Dylan Ham. So one card going to get eaten.
Right. That's an easy way to lose a game you thought you were winning, to just give your opponent that on curve Graveyard Trespasser target from in Arclight Phoenix. But David is protecting his until maybe he can put it in the bin and reanimate it all in one turn.
All right, so we are back to David Tobias on turn 3. Did not discard Phoenix. Luckily for him, that saved his graveyard, or saved it from Graveyard Trespasser. We're gonna start.
And we see here David, hyper aware of this Graveyard Trespasser. I'm interested to see whether he's also aware this ward trigger can also be used as a discard outlet for those Arclight Phoenixes.
Oh, he knows. All right, so he's targeting that. Ward's gonna trigger it. We're gonna discard. Probably Spikefield Hazard would be my guess. Just a Galvanic, that's fine. And that's going to turn on the
Spell Mastery.
yes, and then deals 3 to the Graveyard Trespasser, and we're going to go back. Dylan Ham's way. Does he have the powerful 4-drop Shieldred? No. Goes for Blood Tithe Harvester. Going to generate a blood token. Main phase crack it, maybe. Looking for a land? No. Going to pass back David Tobias's way. We have Arclight Phoenix in hand. Might want to cast that and start jamming. Deal some damage. Here it comes.
Boom.
Bing, bang, boom. Has haste. Attack for 3. If you try to kill it, guess what? It's probably coming back. We're going to crack this blood token in a turn. Dillingham discards Bone Crusher Giant. While dealing 2 to the Arclight Phoenix, can put it to the graveyard. Doesn't stay there for very long.
Right. And we've seen this is the second Izzet Phoenix player we've seen on camera in this event, and both of those players actually packing 4 Thing in the Ice. But
It's
in
coming
this
back,
matchup,
baby.
yeah, this matchup though, maybe not one for Thing in the Ice. At least in game 1, you know Rakdos midrange is going to have fatal pushes,
Oh, for
looking
sure.
for targets.
All right, so grip full of cards and a bunch of lands in play does David Tobias have. He's going to attack for 6 with 2 Arclight Phoenixes and Dillingham all the way down to 9. Dillingham going to need some way to deal with these Phoenixes permanently, some way to exile them, but instead going to maybe try to get a little aggressive to win the race, and here comes Croxa, make you discard. Discards Thing in the Ice. We're 9 to 9, and here's a Fatal Push on this Arclight Phoenix, but you have to imagine that it's going to be coming back next turn, huh?
Absolutely, kind of playing right into the Phoenix's hands when you just put it right in the graveyard like that.
All right, so we're going to pay some amount for Treasure Cruise that's more than 1 because we want to keep at least Arclight Phoenix in the yard. Perhaps doesn't care about the Galvanic iteration. You know, we saw Krista on camera earlier do the same thing, eating the Galvanic iteration, even though might need it later. It's just the mana might be more valuable.
Right. If I had to guess, I'd say David smells blood in the water with his opponent already at 9. Very weak to just a couple more Arclight attacks.
All right. Gonna pay 3 or pay 2. Pay 3. We're gonna draw 3 cards. We have a Lightning Axe, so we have 1 spell rolled up. So we basically just need to draw 1 spell that costs 1 mana or a land and a spell. Looks
And
like
this Treasure Cruise was the card that David was protecting on turn 2 with that Spell Pierce against Thoughtseize.
Right. Even went so far as to shock himself on turn 1 to play the Spell Pierce.
Right.
All right, here we go. We have spell number 3, another Consider, and that's going to bring back Arclight Phoenix, and Dillinham's going to be heading down.
Whoa!
Oh, he's going to find lethal Lightning Axe. It's going to discard Arclight Phoenix number 3, and all those Phoenixes are going to come flying over.
David Tobias not interested in that grindy Rakdos game, getting it over with. And we are already moving on to game 2 of our quarterfinals.
All right, well, as these players look at their sideboard and figure out what they want to bring in and take out, I'm going to throw it over to my man, Bo Matt, who's looking at their list. And why don't you give me your expert analysis on what each player is going to bring in and take out of their deck after sideboard?
So first off, David Tobias's Izzet Phoenix sideboard. We see 2 copies of Aether Gust, 2 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Mystical Dispute, 2 Abrade, 2 Young Pyromancer, 2 Saheeli Sublime Artificer, 2 Crackling Drake, and 1 Brotherhood's End. These Young Pyromancers maybe not going to be as effective in this matchup as in others. You saw Dylan did see that Thing in the Ice, going to be incentivized to leave in some removal post board. Probably not going to see the Pyromancers. Crackling Drake, though, this is a great threat that can end the game in a hurry and still keeps up on cards. Saheeli Sublime Artificer, a great juke, actually. Very little of Dylan's removal is going to be able to deal with this Planeswalker, so you can start pumping out those servos and clog up the board.
All right, so that is what the Phoenix player is going to do. But, you know, it's tough to sideboard against Rakdos, right? They're just kind of a generic
Absolutely.
good stuff deck, so there's no one real focal point you have to attack. Instead, just trying to be resilient in the face of all of their removal. And how do you think the Rakdos side is going to adapt to try to punish this Arclight Phoenix deck that normally relies heavily on the graveyard?
So Dillingham with Rakdos midrange has some more specialized tools here in 2 copies of Unlicensed Hearse, 2 Noxious Grasp, 2 Kolaghan's Command, 1 Hidetsugu Consumes All, 3 Extinction Event, 3 Duress, and 2 Reckoner Bankbuster. First up into the main deck are going to be these Unlicensed Hearses, an absolutely fantastic way to control Phoenixes. You can wait for the Phoenix player to commit some spells into the Phoenix and then activate in the beginning of combat. We also see some copies of Reckoner Bankbuster. If he thinks the game is going to become grindy, those Bankbusters can also be a threat that's hard for the damage-based removal to deal with.
All right, well, while these players are doing their final little sideboarding and shufflings, just want to shout out our sponsors. Thank you so much to Wings Etc. Grill and Pub for helping Apex Gaming and the Apex series function. You know, that keeps us fed, keeps us happy. When we're done with the day, we're probably going to head up there later tonight and get us some bonus wings. Also, shout out to Ultimate Guard for providing the Apex Invitational qualifiers with all that awesome swag that we give to every top 8 competitor at our Apex Invitational qualifiers, including tonight, but at all of our satellite events as well. And you can check out apexgaming.gg to find a qualifier near you, and you too can win you some of that Ultimate Guard swag and maybe an invitation to the Apex Invitational in November. We also want to shout out, last but not least, G Fuel Energy. Thank you so much for keeping us energized on these long days. I know I'm going to need one before the end of the night.
All right, we're looking to get ready with some opening hands here in game 2 of our quarterfinals. Dillinham's going to be on the play with Rakdos midrange.
All right, looking to start off with a discard spell of some kind, probably. No other one-drop threats in the deck or anything like that. Fatal Push, not so good in the matchup. Does contain Thing in the Ice, but Thing in the Ice usually boarded out if you're the Izzet Phoenix player.
We see David contemplating hand with some lands, some spells, and at least one Arclight Phoenix. And no Thoughtseize from Dillingham. We'll just pass on to David.
Dylan's a good enough player where he might have played this matchup enough to know that he needs to slow roll Thoughtseizes until he has a good chance of taking Treasure Cruise like later in the game.
Right.
You know, that type of thing is just so backbreaking when it works. We do see a duress picked up, but this looks like a turn where okay, well, I guess we don't want to run into a Spell Pierce or a piece of interaction, so we're going to go for a duress. We see a hand of Pieces of the Puzzle, Charted Course, a Braid, 2 Arclight Phoenix, and 2 lands. My guess, we're going to take Piece of the Puzzle, but could take the Charted Course since those Phoenixes are in hand.
Right, so we did see the David decline to cast that Charter Course on turn 2. Importantly, it looks like he was planning on holding up that Abrade to try to keep a Graveyard Trespasser in check and even get to discard a Phoenix for value. But Dylan just decides, rather than deploying a threat, to get that piece of the puzzle out of the hand.
All right, we're going to draw 2 and discard 1. My guess is we're going to discard a Phoenix, but might want to just hold on to him to protect him from Trespasser. We know Dillingham has Fable the Mirror Breaker, Bone Crusher Giant. Arclight Phoenix going to hit the bin.
Yeah, and we see this game, Dylan had an opportunity to play Graveyard Trespasser from David's perspective and declined to. So David is just thinking, wow.
Oh, off the top, shows it to him.
Boom.
Puts it right into play from the rip. We're going to eat that Arclight Phoenix, drain for 1, and back David Tobias's way. Now, his graveyard is under attack, but if he's able to deal with this Graveyard Trespasser, ooh, here's Arclight Phoenix. Looks like we're going to have a repeat of game 1 where we just try to get aggressive. Not going to work super well against the Graveyard Trespasser, but it worked well enough last game. Here's a stomp.
Okay.
Oh, bad news for David Tobias. Now, we're going to attack with the Trespasser and eat it and cast the Bone Crusher Giant. And that's going to allow 7 points of pressure as well as the Brain and Drain from the Trespasser and eating the graveyard to continue chewing up David Tobias's resources.
Right, and Tobias just drew a Treasure Cruise. I don't even think he has enough resources to power up this cruise in time while racing against the Trespasser. But there we do see the Abrade finally meeting a Graveyard Trespasser and binning the second Phoenix.
All right, we go opt, and that's third Phoenix, actually.
Right,
That
right.
Phoenix is going to come back into play, and we're going to attack for 3. Now back Dillingham's way after the attack. Now, I think Tobias is actually considering not attacking because it makes the Bone Crusher Giant attack pretty bad. The removal spell without some way to eat the graveyard is a pretty bad proposition as well for Dillingham. So I like the instincts of maybe holding back the Phoenix, but ultimately, it's just how do you figure out if you win, or how do you figure you win the game? And ultimately, it starts with attack with Phoenix, probably ends with
Right.
Temporal Trespass later on.
Right. And here we see a Fable for Dylan. Pretty good, just progressing him to the end game, try to sculpt his hand. We did see Tobias, not really cast any cantrips on his previous turn. Dylan is content to play a slightly slower game, knowing 2 of the Phoenixes are already gone.
Yeah, but this third one does pose a problem. I see a Crackling Drake in Tobias' hand as well, which can hit for huge chunks of damage, and when combined with Temporal
Here we
Trespass,
go.
is basically game over. There is a removal spell in response. I believe it's a cast down, but it's hard to tell.
I believe that is Power Word Kill.
Okay, so Crackling Drake down, Arclight Phoenix still decent here. Probably just going to be used as a blocker. My guess, putting Spikefield Hazard from hand into play tapped as a red source.
David was really hoping to lean on that Crackling Drake that Dylan might be caught without a suitable removal spell, but Dylan barely let it hit the table.
Oh yeah. He knew that Tobias could draw a land or spell pierce and then play a blue source after the draw
Right.
and then protect it. So very wisely killing it with the draw trigger on the stack. Some people wait to do it end of turn. Often that gets you punished. Dillingham activates Chapter 2, A Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Here comes Hive of the Eye Tyrant. We're going to attack for 7, 8, 9. It's going to put David Tobias down to 2. We're going to eat something from the graveyard. I'm curious if there's a Bone Crusher Giant or something similar here to finish things off, or if this is just going to set up Dylan for a win next turn.
David is going to have to put something together fast. It's unlikely he's going to be able to answer all these threats with that Hive of the Eye Tyrant being able to reanimate next turn. I see a Galvanic Iteration. That could definitely team up with a removal spell and pull David back towards parity here.
Alright, well, you saw him attack last turn with it, trying to find a spot where Temporal Trespass steals the game, takes the win,
Right.
but maybe regretting attacking both times with the Arclight Phoenix when he could have been playing defense against Bone Crusher Giant.
Right. That's been 8 damage so far. That could have possibly been prevented. And David really going to have to play tight to get out of this, considering all his options.
Now I'll say this, I think it was Nathan Stoyer, the Magic World Champion, who was the first person to put Temporal Trespass into the Phoenix decks.
Oh, really?
My biggest problem with Phoenix for so long was that you could draw as many cards as you wanted, and some decks just didn't care.
Right.
And, like, I actually just, like, decked myself often when I played Phoenix.
Absolutely.
And, like, drawing too many treasure cruises or whatever felt kind of bad. And ultimately, you just needed some way to steal games. And he came up with the tech of Galvanic Iteration plus Temporal Trespass. It was during the era where people were playing that type of thing in Standard with Alrund's Epiphany, right? Really leaning into that. And we found that, I think he found pieces of the puzzle too. He was just like, all right, pieces of the puzzle, find all this stuff, put all the Phoenixes in the graveyard, and then boom, combo kill you, double time walk out of the graveyard with 2 Phoenixes, hit you for 12, hit you for 15 or whatever, right?
Oh, yeah. And David here, casting a treasure cruise. The extra turn spell. What's it called?
Temporal Trespass.
Temporal Trespass. Kind of the stepson, the third Delve spell of the Pioneer format. Doesn't see as much love, but definitely steals games, exactly like you said.
All right, well, we're going to go Dillingham's way. He had the chance to end a turn Fatal Push on the Young Pyromancer, decides to go to his turn. He's going to go for Fatal Push, and this is going to play around Spell Pierce.
Right. Doing a great job of keeping this Spell Pierce from being live that's still in David's hand.
Okay, and we're going to kill the 2/2 Goblin and make a 1/1, and we are technically not alive.
Still
Never
dead.
mind. Still very dead. Activate.
Menace.
Attack, GG.
Game 3 of the quarterfinals.
Yeah, this is going to be a nail biter. Dillingham playing fast but not loose. Really tight player. One of the best here who plays regularly on the Apex series. And he was undefeated through the Swiss, playing the boogeyman of the format. Rakdos Midrange, and
Right.
kind of a dark horse deck. And Izzet Phoenix is coming back from the grave. It seems we had
Krista.
I'm sorry, her name is her last name is
Krista Oskopinski.
Krista Oskopinski earlier with her very beautiful version of
Right.
Phoenix on camera taking it down, and now we're seeing a different Izzet Phoenix pilot in the top 8. And the deck looks great. And Thing in the Ice maybe making a comeback because of Mono Green Devotion. Ledger Shredder a little bit worse in that specific matchup.
Yeah, that's definitely the best tool Phoenix has for escaping that matchup alive. One card we haven't seen so far in this matchup is Shouldered the Apocalypse. That's definitely something Dylan's going to be looking for to fight back against Treasure Cruise. There's very little that David is packing, that can actually answer a Shieldred. Mostly
Basically just Lightning Axe.
Lightning Axe, exactly.
And Lightning Axe is kind of rough against the Thoughtseize deck because sometimes you just don't have enough raw resources to pitch stuff.
Exactly. This is an interaction that we saw at the Pro Tour. Some teams on Teamer Rhinos bringing Flame of Anor just to have a tool to answer Shieldred at all.
Yeah, red cards dealing 5 damage. It's a tough ask, and Flame of Anor is a cool one, but not legal in Pioneer, unfortunately. Maybe one day. We'll get a standard Lord of the Rings type set, and we'll get Flame of Anor, and it'll be in Pioneer, and I'll get to play it with Get to Lava Runner, and maybe they'll also reprint Grim Lavamancer, and I'll just be And happy Tandyland.
Yeah, you know what? You convinced me. Pioneer's
Oh
the
my
format for
God! How
Wizards.
do I not have a channel called Tandyland? What am I doing?
All
Oh
right,
my
we
God!
are leading off with the Thoughtseize for Dylan Ham. Discarded some blue card. Get it out of here.
Looks like pieces of the puzzle.
Right?
Well, how can you tell? It's just a bottom left corner. Well, it's probably pieces of the puzzle. I'm just telling you.
Exactly.
I don't know how I know. I just kind of know.
So David's going to be leaning on this opt. Looks like he also drew a Spell Pierce.
That's a good one for your opponent to not know about. Tell you that much.
Right. Definitely looking to tag a Fable on turn 3 here.
All right, here is Blood Tithe Harvester for Dylan Ham. That's going to generate a blood token. That one can't be hit with a Spell Pierce. See if Tobias wants to do anything about it, but likely just has to go to his own turn. Does he want to play this opt, looking for a red removal spell?
Right, and here you see the cantrips are super easy to just jam at every opportunity. But David, being a little judicious, maybe doesn't know what he wants to scry for. Maybe also wants to save that opt for an Arclight Phoenix turn.
All right, Dylan Ham, a lot of the information unknown, but deciding to play around Spell Pierce by playing a Duress here, I think this is a super smart play. One of the reasons why Dylan is one of the best here at Apex. And in response, Tobias going to be playing an Opt and going to be losing that Spell Pierce. Going to cast it, actually, and Dylan just going to go ahead and pay, but no hits. And it didn't have anything to do with the 2 mana anyway, so I think that's more than fine. Gonna go back Tobias's way. We have Arclight Phoenix coming down. Do we hold it back? Do we attack? Gonna get aggressive. Bang on the drum.
I believe that's 3 games and 3 turn 4 Arclight Phoenixes out of David.
Some people just have a type, They just
Absolutely.
You're just a hard caster. It's okay. All right, we can go Fable the Mirror Breaker now. Hold up a mana so that we can use the blood token, and we're off to the races. Arclight Phoenix does some serious damage in a hurry. Saw a red card. That's a young Pyromancer, but nothing to do with it just yet.
Yikes.
Could be good next turn. All you need is a chain of stuff, and if Dylan Ham doesn't have a removal spell, could be really punishing in that racing scenario. Now, with that said, might be worth it to just hold back Arclight Phoenix to block.
Right. Well, if you're hoping for Dylan not to have a removal spell, Blood Tithe Harvester is going to have something to say about that.
Well, then you're trading, and then, whatever. You're right. I hate it when you're right.
There's the Pyro. At least going to get that 3 power pressure off of Dylan's board. At the very least.
All right, Chapter 2, Duress and a land to the bench. Stomp. Bye-bye.
The clock stays on.
But this defensive Arclight Phoenix, it feels like maybe Ham doesn't really want to attack into it. At the very least, Tobias is going to trade. And then we're going to see if Ham has a way to eat the graveyard. Doesn't. Going to go ahead and just play Bone Crusher Giant off the treasure. Plays the Blackleaf Cliffs tapped.
We've really seen some fast games here. This is one of the hallmarks of Rakdos midrange, in Pioneer in particular. You can't make the turn 1 8/8s like the modern Rakdos deck, but Pioneer Rakdos is very good at putting on the clock very early in a game after a couple Thoughtseizes.
All right, Tobias plays a land here. I think the Hall of the Storm Giants is 1 short of being activated.
Right.
Costs 6, very expensive. And I pass back. We're going to transform Fable the Mirror Breaker, and we got a bunch of knuckleheads about to enter the red zone. You know why it's called the red zone?
Is it the same reason as the NFL?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think maybe, but what actually made it the red zone was originally in Magic Online when you declare your attackers, the board would split, and then in between the 2 boards would be a red zone.
And just like in Game 2, the Crackling Drake immediately answered by a Power Word kill, and Dylan Ham is moving on to the semifinals.
Nice. Nicely done. A relatively tough game for the Izzet Phoenix pilot, mulliganing pretty low and getting hit with a bunch of discard spells. And ultimately, Rakdos Midrange doing what Rakdos Midrange do.